My name's Rose Baggett. I am an associate professor in the Department of Psychology at McGill University, and I'm a behavioral neuroscientist. My lab focuses on understanding how stress changes the brain. We do this in mice, and we do this with the goal of trying to understand something about what goes wrong in disorders like depression that are associated with stress, with the ultimate hope that perhaps in the future we can develop new treatments for stress-related disorders. The Ludmer Center was pivotal in me coming back to McGill because at the time when I was applying for jobs after my postdoc, I applied widely. I applied in the US, I applied in Canada at a couple of different places, and I had a number of offers. And the Ludmer Center contributed money towards my startup that made it possible for me to accept McGill's offer. The additional funding that I got from the Ludmer Center kind of gave me this extra flexibility early on that allowed me to grow the lab quickly, that allowed me to kind of follow bold ideas, do the science I wanted to do, and know that things would fall into place. We recently published a paper looking at the neural circuit mechanisms related to threat processing. Male and female mice were behaviorally responding in exactly the same way, or almost exactly the same way, to this sort of threat stimulus and then a non-threat stimulus. We found that the neural circuits that they were using to do this were quite different. We started this project really with just a very simple question of trying to understand how two projections to the nucleus accumbens, the prefrontal cortex projection to the accumbens and the ventral hippocampus projection to the accumbens, we wanted to understand what kind of information they're encoding. What we found ultimately was quite surprising, and that was that both neural circuits, the PFC to the accumbens and the ventral hippocampus to the accumbens, were encoding threat stimuli, but how they differentiated those threat stimuli from stimuli that were sort of indicating that no threat would happen was quite different between male and female mice. In the male mice, the ventral hippocampus increased its activity to a threat stimulus, and it didn't increase its activity when there's no threat. But in the female mice, the ventral hippocampus increased its activity to the threat stimulus, but it equally increased its activity to the no threat stimulus. The prefrontal cortex was sending this other signal, which was differentiating the threat from the non-threat. What was so surprising about this was that behaviorally, the male and female mice seem to learn equally. There's sort of threat and no threat discrimination. We only found this difference because we routinely studied both male and female mice. It was a very humbling reminder of something that I kind of knew, but we can't assume that there's no difference just because sort of the first experiment that we do doesn't reveal a difference between males and females, and that we need to be routinely studying both sexes, or else we're going to mix really important variability. Changing political climates that create instability, but also create this feeling of unwelcomeness. And my lab is heavily international. I am international. I see there being barriers in being able to recruit great people and being able to support great and diverse scientists to not only do great work, but build a good life for themselves. And that I find deeply troubling. Diverse people bring diverse perspectives, develop new ideas, think of things that other people haven't thought of. I try to think in like recruitment and maintaining like my lab, that we're not homogeneous, that we have people who come from different training backgrounds, who come from different cultural backgrounds, even just like different personalities, because we work together a lot and we learn from each other. What creates this stimulating and productive environment is that sort of rubbing up of different ideas, right? Where you come up with something new that you wouldn't have thought of by yourself with just your own worldview.